those. Let's put those up there tomorrow. I'll be more thoughtful and intentional on that.
Yeah.
But okay. So why don't we? I'll tee this one up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go now. This is your world.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay, Shane, everyone, welcome back. This is Steve Cadigan. I got Shane Howard here, the Work Week After Hours. What episode are we on now, Shane?
I think it's 9. I think this
Episode
is 9 or
9.
10. 9 or 10. Yeah. 9
okay.
Or 10.
All right, 9 or 10. And Shane, I want to take a bit of a turn from the normal way we've been approaching this. We set out on this journey a few months ago to talk about topical things in the world of work that strike a chord with us. We don't plan a script. We have things that we want to spend time talking on in a way that is like having a conversation with our listeners around stuff going on. And boy, there is no shortage of those.
Sure.
But when we raised a few weeks ago, you shared with the audience, you shared with all of us that you are about to begin. In fact, you've already begun a heck of a pivot of your life, of everyone in your life. And I want to talk about that. You ready to do that?
Yeah, we can dive into it. It's been it's definitely started. To kind of maybe this is your first time listening. So I myself and my family and I are relocating to Lisbon, Portugal in June of 2022. So to kind of back that up a little bit, a lot of our recent episodes have talked about this whole shake up, this work quake, this great career migration that's occurring coming out of this post-COVID world and a professional world and a personal world, because really it's kind of shaken all levels of our life, right? Like there's been people who've been affected, emotionally, physically, psychologically, all these different things. So long story short, we had lived in I wouldn't say our forever home, but it was definitely going to be a transition into our forever home, or we were going to add on to our house. Nice house here in Kentucky on 2 acres of land on a dead end street where the mayor lives and on a lake. I mean, it was a great setup, great neighborhood. And, for us, we had a family. I got to be careful on what I put out because I don't know how much publicly they've put out about their situation. So we have some friends of ours who mentioned it to my wife and said, "Hey, I'm looking at traveling. We're looking at kind of doing like a soft retirement in Portugal." Well, my wife and I, we had always discussed moving and living overseas, but just to be honest, I've got 5 kids, 2 are in college, one as young as 4. We just assumed, well, we'll wait until most of the kids are out of the house or all the kids are out of the house, and then we'll probably go to Australia or New Zealand, where those places are very much home away from home for me. I've spent a ton of time doing work in my past careers of doing different things. And
those of just I'm going to fill in some backstory for the listeners too, because I think it's worth noting you have traveled a lot in your last role. You were in China a lot. You're in Australia. You're in New Zealand. You've seen the world. So you had a taste, right? Had your wife had an international taste as much as you?
No. She traveled, I think, to outside of a cruise and kind of going to the Caribbean. She had taken about 2 years before we got together. She took a short trip through the UK, Scotland, I think in that realm. And outside of that, she really hadn't traveled. And then we took my daughter, my youngest daughter, it'll be 2 years ago this fall. We took her and my wife's aunt to Paris and London over fall break. And that was, my wife had never been to Paris. So that was kind of new in that experience for her. But yeah, she hasn't really, I mean, I have with my previous company, Custom College Recruiting, I have traveled. There was a point for many, many years in a row where I was traveling 150, 200 days a year out of the country, going to places like Australia, New Zealand, and being gone for 18, 20, 22, 23 days in a row doing that. And I've given a bunch of talks around the world. I've given probably 300 talks on 4 different continents and bounced around.
So the backstory is you and your wife over time have shared this, hey, maybe one day we might have sort of kind of could do that, but it
Yes.
was just talk. It was
Yeah,
just an
maybe
idea
once a
in the
year.
future.
Yeah, watching a TV show where somebody's traveling,
Right.
sparks a conversation.
Were you
Yeah.
a Downton Abbey? Did you get into Downton Abbey like all these other
No,
people?
my
No.
in-laws did.
Okay.
My wife and I more ours were more of like your like Anthony Bourdain,
Oh yeah.
those kind of shows where they're traveling and seeing the food and the
Oh yeah.
the
Love
culture and the
Bourdain stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
I got accused. We were in Las Vegas last week, as you know. I got accused by someone. We sat down, and some guy's like says to my wife, "Hey, your husband looks like Anthony Bourdain." I go, "Okay, I heard a lot of comparisons. I never heard
Yeah, I
that
don't see
one."
that one.
I said,
I don't see
"I'll
that one.
take it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think so." All right, man. So bring us up. So you guys
No.
you've had that thought. You've thought about it. You've mulled around, but I mean, that's a big leap. You got kids. You got stuff. You got roots, and you love it. Your community that you're in, and so you're at a dinner party or you're getting together with some friends, some close friends, and all of a sudden that idea, and you're like, "All right, so what happened there?" So the
Yeah,
seeds
so
took root there.
well, it kind of came up during the day in a passing of my wife and
Okay.
the wife of this other couple. And my she came home and she kind of mentioned it to me what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
So I have ADHD, so my brain instantly goes into this research world. I'm going now, right? I go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I start looking at some of the stuff, and I was like, well, this is quite interesting because I didn't know some of these things, right? So some of these things that I did not know that it was the third safest country in the world. I did not know that essentially it's going to be tax free for us for 10 years. I did not know the cost of living was as low as it was. I did not know the healthcare system was as affordable and or free as it is. I knew how easy it was to bounce around Europe from there and how inexpensive that is. I knew its proximity to Spain and getting into Spain and those kind of things. So I already knew those things, but it was never one of those places that my business had never taken me there. My business has taken me to Sweden and Denmark and the UK and Belgium and those different things, and Paris and these different places, but it had never taken me here to Portugal. So
Yeah.
we started doing a little research. I was like, oh wow, like okay. Like, man, this is, and my wife and I are like, and I kind of use that rule. I don't know how you guys are when you come up with something, but we all get these wild harebrained ideas all the time, right? It's like,
Yeah.
but we kind of gauge it as like, if we're still talking about it on a regular basis a couple weeks from now, then it's something we might want to start actually kind of looking into. Otherwise, it was just kind of a fleeting thought, and it sounded cool, but it's not something I'm really going to do. So that was kind of how we really started digging into it a little bit.
So you had a lot of positive data, and because you're a researcher and because you're savvy with, in your research, you're like, wow, affordability, taxation. And so now some more barriers have been stripped away. Like you're peeling the onion here and you're like, hey, it's not just validating it's a possibility. Like this is actually probably something you hadn't considered. This could be additive, like beyond just the cultural, educational, like this could cost us a whole lot less to live as a family.
Yeah. So, in transparency, so people understand from a timeline standpoint, at this point, you and I just met, and we're not in a working engagement
Partnership.
at all.
Yeah.
None of that. And we'll do a whole episode on all of that and what that is and what that actually is to kind of share with people. But, we like it got to look, and I was like, okay, I was still, I at that point doing some consulting, doing some digital marketing consulting for some different companies. Can do that from anywhere. I can do that from anywhere. COVID obviously pushed everybody. I was kind of already in that mix because I have essentially worked from home. I mean, we had an office, but when you own a business, you're kind of always working. So you're still working from home no matter where you're at.
Yep.
So I did that. And it started to like, it went from like, there's a couple layers to it. So there's this cultural experience that I think we'll get as a family. There is a psychological callus that I think in a good way it will build for my kids, like putting them in a controlled environment with adversity and learning and accepting other people and being on the other side of that fence to, being the minority as an American, in this country and those kind of
Mhm.
things, to kind of see it's good life lessons there. But then there were also these other pieces of this financial ramification of, we have a good life, we've done well, but we live very, I'm not a flashy guy. I enjoy really nice cologne and good shoes, and that's it. Like I don't get
Uh-huh.
into much. So in that, we've kind of, we saw, this might be actually be a business decision. So like this can accelerate our retirement or cause me to be in a position to where I can just work on the things that I want to work on rather than work on the
Right.
things that I have to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's and what's I think really cool about what you just shared is that's counter to how a lot of people think about moves. And we can get into you and your as an entrepreneur and your capacity for risk, which I think is a lot higher than most as I've
Yes.
come to know you. But I want to first go through the big burn the bridge moments because you've just had a few of those, like your
Yes.
wife and her work and
Yep.
your home.
Yep.
And so, because this is, I mean, there's a big difference between, hey, I think we could, and like, we're doing it. Like, were there, share with us if you will, like, what was that moment where like, we're doing this and what did that look like? And what are what burned the bridge like moments have you stepped through? Because what I'm hoping and what I hope our audience is going to enjoy a lot, because I'm already enjoying this is over this next, year, 2 years, like we're gonna do this check-in every so often because I
Yeah.
think it's fascinating and it does, as you said in the beginning, and it's so funny because the only thing we ever talk about is like, okay, who's gonna drive the bus this week?
Yeah.
Is I said, oh, I'll drive the bus, and then I hand it over to you, and you do a much better job setting up this episode than I did, even though I was going to be driving the bus.
It's all right.
But what I like is you have a really good way of helping us see the whole thing, and I do hope as we go in the weeks and months and years ahead that we can really have this be a check-in moment because it is symbolizing a lot of what people are thinking about and you're acting on it, and I'm super excited for you. But tell us the moment when you realize it's going to do it, and then what those first burn the bridge decisions were that,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no
So
turning back now.
yeah. So as you mentioned, I am definitely not a stranger to risk. A lot of
Mhm.
that has to do with my life, growing up and not, risk being a survival tactic in some ways and not
Yeah.
just, I'm reckless. And I'm never reckless. It's just when I take a risk, I'm able to assess, um, the, the risk, I guess, in a way to where, I'm just not afraid of the loss, and I'm not afraid of, like, the worst thing that could happen is like somebody eats me, right? So I'm not going to get eaten, so I'm going to survive, right? No one, like, I'm a 6'6" guy, I'm a big guy, I got big shoulders, like nothing's going to happen to me, right? Like I got food in the fridge, we're good. Like we'll figure it out. I've been homeless. I've been in
Mhm.
much
Mhm.
worse situations, so this is not a time to stress or worry. And so we had to, like, my wife and I had this ongoing conversation. We found some YouTube videos. We found some different people talking about this, and we're like, okay, I think we're gonna let's keep. Like, are you sure? Like, you would do this? And she was like, oh, if I could not teach anymore, then I would definitely do this. Like, I would. She's like, yes, I would definitely do this. So we were sitting at dinner one night. We actually just talked about this, ironically, with my kids. So we were sitting at dinner, sitting at the house during COVID, can't go anywhere, ordering food out. I'm cooking. I cook most of our meals during COVID.
Mhm.
My wife says, you want to say something? I was like, yeah. I was like, guys, let me ask you this. If something came about to where we could possibly live in another country, before I could even get it out, my kids were like, yeah, let's go. I want to go. I want to go. I was like, well, you don't even know where it would be. And they're like, we just want to go. We want to go see the world.
All right. So how far into the pandemic and have they been having to stay at home and
Oh yeah. This is
okay.
probably October, early
Okay.
November, late October, early November of
Okay.
2020.
Okay.
Um,
And give the audience just an age range. We're talking toddlers,
yeah,
obviously not because they're
14. Yeah,
verbal. Okay.
14. They're 14, 11, and 4 now.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
So this kind
Wow.
of happened. Now, also keep in mind, this goes
Why
back
do you think
to
they said yes so quickly? Like, what's that
so
all about?
yeah. So in our house, we have very global conversations, right? So like my kids. I mean, my travels like I have family, people that I call family in Australia and New Zealand and China. Like there has been people from many different countries just staying at my house or
Okay.
come
Okay.
in town for dinner. Or they come to Kentucky to see the Bourbon Trail and then pop in. So
Mhm.
it's very normal for them to sit down and have some people from Australia to have dinner with, or,
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
that accent and ask these questions. So I wanted to expose them because I never in them. I mean, all I knew about Australia when I was a kid was Crocodile Dundee. Like I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I think dad always traveled. I always brought back candy they could only get in those countries. So it kind of tied them back mentally to, oh, this is what this is. Always took a lot of pictures, always FaceTimed with them if I was somewhere really cool. Because when I'm gone for 21 days, it was never like I was on vacation. I was
Yeah.
giving a talk every single day that I was gone. I'm meeting with people. I'm getting other work done that still has to be done. I've got team members with me and taking care of those issues. It's, all those different things. So when we had that downtime, yeah, it was, I think they were just exposed to it. And they were just like, yeah, I want to go. I think they see how much I love it and how
Yeah.
much I love the, I guess, I guess they see how much I love the adventure of
Hmm.
going and how it's one of those things where if you're afraid, your kids are going to be afraid. If you come home with a bad attitude from work, your kids sense it and they're like, "Oh, steer
Yeah.
clear of
Yeah.
dad. The
Hmm.
bear is angry. Do not just
Hmm.
go sit in your room and go play your video games. Like just let
Hmm.
So I think for them, they see that there's no fear. I mean, maybe that comes back to haunt them in some ways if they feel like they're their
Hmm.
dad, can go through
Hmm.
these things, but there's no fear or concern. We don't talk negative about other locations or people, or
Hmm.
it's just not that. So it's be open to whatever adventure comes along your way. And so that's what they did. So that kind of got us. They were loving it. We immediately got them in Portuguese classes online. Every week we were having these kind of side conversations like, are you sure you want to go, and bringing up things. So I know there's somebody else that's going to eventually go down this. So we would say things like, you're not going to see your friends, but once a
Yeah.
year when you come back, are you
Hmm.
okay? Like that, because we wanted to give them an out. We wanted to give them an ability to
Right.
say,
Right.
no, because they're not going to think of those things. They're just thinking of the
That's
cool
right.
fun.
That's right. And you shared with me, and I want you to share here now, that you guys have had a dog,
Yep. Yeah. We've had a dog.
and that is a big step
Yeah.
for the kids. And I'm gonna guess the kids are attached to the dog, like my kids are. Like they
Were.
just
Yeah. Were.
were. Yeah.
Were.
Were. Okay. So
Were.
we've already had another
Yes. Yeah.
big.
So kind of fast forward, kids fall in love with everything. We come up to this spring, right in the middle of this. The market is the housing market right now is obviously everybody around the world knows it's as hot as it's ever been probably.
Wow.
So I made a business decision that no one around me, I think maybe other than my wife, and I don't even know if my wife has just gotten to the point now where she just blindly trusts me. If
Uh-huh.
it's like, because she saw me build a company from the last $1,500 I have to my name into this thing. So it's kind of
Uh-huh.
like if Shane says this is okay and it's going to happen, like he'll figure it out. Like
Right.
he will. So I do this. I say, okay, I think we're going to put the house up for sale. One, I don't want to be dealing with this when it comes time for us to be leaving the country.
Right. Right.
And two, I don't want to miss out the market because right now we can get $30,000-$40,000 more for our home than we could. And if the market shuts off or it goes back the other way, 12
Yeah.
months from now, I don't want to miss out on that money.
Right. That's
So
substantial. Hmm.
yes, yeah. So right when that happens, I put my house up on the market. It sells within 9 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Then the kids weren't prepared. Like it went on the market. I come home that night and it's like, hey, the house is sold. And then there's this emotional turmoil that they have to go through, right? Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have to go. you hate going through it as a parent because you're inflicting like some wounds emotionally on your kids. But I tell my kids, we just moved. This is probably the 32nd time I've moved in my life. And my family was not a military family. It was not. This is the probably the 32nd or 33rd home that I've lived in my 41 years of life. So
My.
I don't get emotionally attached to a lot of things. So they were like, this is our home. This is where I've been my whole life. I was like, yes, it's the longest I've ever lived in one place. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, coming out of that, they were struggling. Right as that happens, Mother's Day happens, and my wife's grandmother passed away. And my kids were super close with her. So now here's some more emotional baggage that's happened. In this same process, now we have a closing day. So we know that we've got about 3 weeks that we've got to now rehome our dog. So because there are no rentals, so we had no place to go
no
to
rental,
for
right? No rentals will take pets, so
no
that's going
rentals
to
will take
limit your
pets.
yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to share with the audience the conversation you and I had. So you said, I sold a house. There's no homes for rent.
I'm homeless.
And I'm thinking, whoa, I don't know that I could ever handle that kind of risk. And you weren't worried about it. You were a little concerned, more from the rest of the team here is going to be nervous about that when I tell them that, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, everything has a way of working out. Like most of it's like fear, right? Like, what's on the other side of fear? Nothing. 99.9% of the things that we conjure up in our head that we're all of a sudden afraid of, they never actually happen. What I have found in my life, that the joy and the true sweetness of life is actually when you just jump out and you try. You and I are doing this. I'm doing something so off the wall, and so nothing of it makes sense. And like I said, we'll get into that, but like, that's like, even you were like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, yeah, yes. Like, and I'm loving it. This is, again, it's, and something amazing is coming out of it. Right. So, so it's just taken. So then in that same time period now of trying to, so we had no place to live, and we had, and we did not have a place for our dog. So both things are going to come due here now in 3 weeks from then. Right. Then my lease is up on my car. I had a nice car, nice BMW. I like my car, right? I'll enjoy, even if it's just driving around, listen to a podcast or some music to just kind of have my time.
Your
right?
sanctuary.
Yes. So I said, you know what? My wife, at the same time, now all of this is all happening all at one time. So my wife says, she goes, I need to make a decision either for my mental health or for the family. She goes, do I work till Christmas, or do I just go ahead and cash it in now? And I said, then whatever is best for your mental health is what's best for us as a family. And she said, okay. She goes, are you sure? And we actually have a running joke of, she's like, well, I really wish you would have supported me in this decision. Like, for me, it's like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's not, it's like if you're home, and she's doing online, she has an online tutoring business. So she didn't just quit without a job. Like, she's quitting to go do something else. But in that process, she quit. So grandmother dies, dog got to rehome, no place to live, house sold in 9 days. I turned my car in, so we go from a 2-car household to a 1-car household.
She quits her job.
All of this all happened in the span of about 3.5 weeks. Dad started a whole new project and stuff he's working on. All this happened. So, and I'll tell you, there is some beauty out of all of it. And what I have learned looking back in this, actually, there's something new every day. It's about finding how things in the present moment are preparing you for where you're headed, no matter what it is, right? You and your time at LinkedIn, there's things that happened that prepared you for the moment of where you're at right now. We literally just talked about this, and you podcasting, and you've been doing interviews literally your whole life, right? So
right.
there are these things my kids emotionally went through what they went through, and now they've realized that I can cut ties. I can emotionally part with something, still love it, but be happy of what's coming forward and what's in front of me.
Yeah.
So they went through that. So like, okay, 11 months. Our motto right now is 11 months. We're here for 11 months. 11 months, we're gone. Something doesn't work. We're in the rental home, and there's boxes everywhere still right now. 11 months.
Yeah.
We're gone in 11 months. That's okay. 11 months. And then it's these little things of getting prepared and being prepared for the move. I just did it today. I had a real nice double door refrigerator, had a big drawer and the freezer in the bottom, like that's where I had. Now in my rental, I don't have that. So now I just told my wife, there's 5 of us in the house. So you know what? This is gonna prepare us for Portugal. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, the fridge is kind of small. I can only fit a couple days worth of groceries in there at one time. So the European way of grocery shopping is you go every couple days and get your fresh.
In Europe.
Yeah.
If you have one. Yeah. Yep.
So
which is all about fresh, farm to table. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. So there's all these little things that we're going through, and now we're to the point where, so to kind of bring everything up to speed.
Yep.
We found some people we know who are builders, have a neighborhood. They had a model home, really nice neighborhood. They had a model home come open. Probably half of the town we live in has probably walked through this house probably at some point or time. And, it's, now we're in a place to where we have a place. We found a great home for our dog.
How did you find the rental at the end of the day? I don't even remember that story.
So Facebook, it's somebody posted in a group. There's now groups in town. You probably have one in where you live of rental homes in X city. Yeah. And people are posting now to where there's people now that are just going and living with other people because they can there's a house in my town.
You can rent it. Yeah.
Rent is probably the average rent for all rental homes, we're talking apartments and everything, is probably $800 a month. There's one last night listed for $3,400 last night with a pool. It's in a very nice, exclusive neighborhood. Like it's a big house. It's a big house for our neighborhood. Right. And, it's, the market is what it is. So we found it. I was in Atlanta. We knew them. We reached out. They came back and said, yeah, we'd love to offer the home to you. And again, everything has happened. We're also leaving Monday to go to Portugal. And
so that's another part of the story. Like, let's not gloss over that. This is really good. You have made a decision to move someplace you both have never been to together.
Correct. Yeah, neither one of us have been there. Yeah, neither one of us have been there.
I'm so in awe of that, and the courageousness and the excitement, and we'll talk about this in a future episode. But I firmly believe that, and I'm as conservative as they come when it comes to decisions like this. Like so that's talk to my wife about buying a car, leasing a car. Whoa, I don't know about these things. But I do believe in my heart, my core, that we completely underestimate the energy that gets unlocked when you do what you said, which is you jump off the diving board. And that could be the essence of life, as you say. And I think you're onto something. And having worked in the startup world, what does a startup have that a big company with big assets and big budgets and big investors and big market share and big customers, like what does a big company have that a startup doesn't have? Well, they don't have the crazy energy that a startup has, where it's chaos, there's lots of unknowns. And I think when you bring that into a family, and the part that I want, there's two places I want to go with you next after you finish your train of thought. But one is, tell me about what this has done for your family so far, what you've learned, maybe what surprised you, maybe what didn't surprise you. And then I want to hear from you about the outside world around you, your wife's colleagues, your church community, your parents of your kids' friend, and what's the reaction that you've had there? So give me a sense of those.
Yeah. So I guess I have a question that I want to ask on your conservativeness. You and I again, we keep alluding to it, so we'll make that episode sooner than later. But you and I have formed a partnership and also went into business together, all in the same boat, I guess.
Yep.
Learning what you're learning about me and my fearlessness, or my my lack of whatever it is. Does it make you uncomfortable? Or
100%. No, it's filling in a complementary part of me that I want and that I need.
Okay.
And we'll get into this in the future, but you've framed things for me differently. You've suggested things. You've maybe pushed me, nudged me, led me on this podcast like that. It's like I was like, I don't know about this, man. I can speak to an audience in a room and be totally comfortable because I'm speaking about what I know and what I like. And I was like, am I going to be able to do this in unstructured way? And you have just a calmness that you don't reek of, I'm the risk taker, man. You reek of, I'm calm and comfortable and I'm good and I'm not worried. And so that's not always when I think about big choices, big decisions, I get nervous because I don't know why I get nervous. It's probably a therapy conversation there somewhere. But buying my first house, I had panic attack pretty much. Buying my first new car. I didn't have a new car till I was mid-30s, and I don't want a new car. Like, whoa, insurance and all this other stuff. Like, what if I ding it? And I did. And the day I bought it, I was like, oh, I love that car. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like a little Volkswagen.
Yeah. I was curious about that. So what have I learned from my family? One, I've learned that my kids definitely have more of my DNA in them from a resilient standpoint than I probably gave them credit for.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Kids have meltdowns. Kids have bad days. Kids have days where they're jerks, and like they're human too, right? They're little people with their own personalities. And we have traveled, we have been going through all this, and they're running around right now behind my little guy is running around, controlling himself and not talking and not saying anything right now behind the monitor right now. And but they've got it figured out. They know, like, it's like they're
right.
They adapt. And I think about, how amazing it would have been at my age to be able to go on an adventure. And I want to provide that adventure for my kids to be able to go and do this, and to know that there are no limits, right? I can't put them in the situations in my life growing up where I went through, verbal abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse, or, being in neighborhoods I probably had no business being in, or hanging around people I had no business hanging around, or having a gun pulled on me, multiple times. Like, these things, I don't want them to go through those things. But I want them to have some of the resilience and some of the moxie, I guess, that comes along with that. And this is kind of doing it. So I'm challenging them in some ways. Like, there's like these things that I do now as a parent. I've learned, having 5 kids, you learn over a bunch of like failures, like business, right? Your first kid always will look at the if you have 4 or 5 kids, your first kid will always look at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th kid and say, well, they didn't have it as bad as I had it, or you weren't as hard on them. It's because we learn. Like, it's like there's no manual, right? There's all the books in the world won't tell you how to be a great parent. Like, they won't do it. And so I'm learning that as well. As far as the people around us, 100%, most of the people thought we were batshit crazy doing this, but they knew me. So what's funny, even though my wife drove this situation.
Okay. My
wife was the one who came, like, everybody thought like, oh, Shane was the one who came up with this. No. My wife brought this home to me, right? Like, there's this thing of now, so they know me. So like, oh, Shane, like, he's the guy who literally will walk up to somebody and just like if it's wrong, he's going to tell them in a very professional way, in a very direct way. Like, no, we're not doing this. Like, this is not how this is going to go. In this, I'm the guy who walks up to the guy in the restaurant who's screaming and yelling and cussing with a bunch of kids there, and asking him politely, it'd be nice if he just shut his mouth so we can all sit here and my kids don't have to hear this conversation that he's going. But that's the guy I am, right? So they kind of have this thing of like, okay, but yeah, family. I've got great in-laws. They are very much my family. I don't have a very strong connection to any of my family, parents, anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't have any grandparents still living, so they are very much my family. Emotionally, it was tough for them because they're really, really close to my kids.
Yeah.
But they're coming around, and they will.
Do you think they will come visit you when you're there?
Yeah, I think they will.
Mhm.
I honestly think so. So the way the visas work out, they can actually stay for 90 days at a time. I'm already looking at places to stay, so where make sure
Mhm.
we'll have an extra bedroom or two.
Yeah.
Because I know, and again, it's one of those things where if my friends know that my house is open, like if you're there and you want to come, or your kids want to come hang out and stay for a
Yeah.
summer, like it's
Yeah.
that's how we do it. So yeah, it's colleagues. Everybody always says. I've even talked to some folks on your end of the world. We've had conversations, and it's just come up about Portugal, and they're like, "Man, like I love what I do, but man, I'm envious. Like I'm jealous. Like I wish I was,
Mhm.
going and
Yeah.
doing that or going and doing this." So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
there's been mixed reviews.
Mhm. And so you're flying out there for a sort of reconnaissance mission in a week or so. Do you have a full itinerary all built out already?
We don't, because it's technically still not open,
Okay.
and it's supposed to open on Monday. So it's supposed to
Uh-huh.
open on Monday, and then we're supposed to go.
Okay.
So again, I may not know
Literally.
until
Yeah.
Wednesday, and I got to drive to Chicago to fly out next Sunday. So I mean, they just made. That's why I said every single thing. We set these financial goals. You know, all the things. Hey, I want to be debt free. I want to be, I want to sell the house. I want
Mhm.
to not, like,
Mhm.
all these different things that we wanted to have done, and we've done all those things. Everything has happened how we've wanted it to happen. And now we're in a situation, like the last thing that could really hang this up is, are we going to be able to go this summer? And then last 2 weeks has been like, we're probably not going to go. I literally 2 days ago sat down with my wife and I said, hey, let's pick some dates in July because we're probably going to have to go. And in the middle of that conversation, this news article from Reuters hits the news press where they say, hey, we're opening it up next week to Americans who are vaccinated. And I'm
Mhm.
I'm vaccinated. I've done my part, and we'll be able to go and do that. So I don't have. We know some neighborhoods. We're staying in some neighborhoods and some Airbnbs. I don't like doing hotels. I like to feel where we're going and live
Uh-huh.
like a local. So we're staying in some nice Airbnbs in the neighborhoods where we will be able to walk around and go eat and go shop
Yeah.
and
And you
go do those.
identified those through your searching and all
Correct.
that and
Correct.
YouTubes and all that. All right,
Yep.
that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I've those people who are listening. I've been to Lisbon once, and I told you the first time you told me, like, my
Yeah.
wife and I had talked about in a future where our children are out of the house, that we could see us living here many months of the year, and maybe more. I mean, we've got, between the two of us, we have 6 kids. I have 4 boys, and she's got 2 girls. So, I don't know that I want to be too far away from that for an extended period. But
Sure.
man, if they were the age like you that we could be over there, I'd be
Yeah.
very
Yep.
attractive to us. So, on the technical side, and I don't want to belabor this if it's going to take too long to explain, but is it take a lot? Is it costly to get a visa to stay there more than 90 days?
No.
No.
So what we'll be getting is what's called a D7 visa. It's probably $200 or $300, maybe $400 per person to
Mhm.
get, and then it takes. During COVID, it was taking about 2.5, 3 months to process. Now it's taking about 6 to 8 weeks, and then once they approve it, you have 4 months to arrive in the country. So we're gonna
Okay.
start. We're gonna start the paperwork probably January ish of
Hmm.
of next year. It'll be approved by February, and then we'll be in June
Hmm.
when we go. So yeah, I mean it's not super difficult. And then once you go there, so that gives you the visa to go there, and then you go through your residency meeting. But they're very, very welcoming. Portugal is very, very welcoming to Americans coming to expats from anywhere in the world, really coming in. There's some really cool things that not even just Portugal, but Portugal has what's called the non-habitual residency permit, which essentially says if you make money outside of Portugal. So like my business will still be located here in Kentucky. Then that money is tax free on their end for 10 years. And the United States has what's called the foreign earned income exclusion, to where each adult can write off, and it goes up every year. Each adult right now can write off $108,000 each off of their federal income tax. Plus, plus there's, for a married couple, once you go over a certain threshold, we can write off, I believe it's $36,000 a year in housing. So, I mean, once you do your IRA contributions, your 401k stuff, all that stuff, from a self-employed standpoint, I mean, you're essentially tax free. I mean, it's and for 10 years, and I should be able to retire in 10 years if I play my cards right and business goes as as the trajectory is heading. So,
yeah. Wow. And that was the other question I had for you. What is the duration? I mean, you say
we're for good. My goal is, and it's not an indictment on America. It's not, has nothing to do with that. I am, I come from,
I'm not going to go there. I'm sure some people may.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
That's definitely not where my head went. My head went like jealous.
Well, some people, I have gotten that. Oh, well, you don't love America. I do love America.
Right.
But there is something to be said about going where you are treated best.
Yeah.
And why should we allow man-made borders? Like the whole stay and I'm going to put my stake in the ground and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to fight a system that you're not going to win. You're not going to, like the American governmental system on either side of the aisle. You will never, you are not going to make it play in your favor. So you have to play with the rules you're given, right? Well, there's other countries that have different rules. So I'm going to play with the rules that you give me here as an American citizen that says if I go over here. So now I look at both of your sets of rules and I say, okay, this is how I make this work.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing how government policy and regulation can drive decisions like this. So I'm reflecting back on a time when I was living in Singapore and I start looking around like, man, there's so many people from Australia. Like, what is going on? Like, I know, and this is something that I don't think Americans appreciate, particularly successful business leaders. When you're in a small country like Australia or Singapore, you reach a point where you're in a big job in a big company and there's nowhere else to go. There's no other bigger company. There's no other bigger job. And now you face a reality where my boundaries of development have a finite ceiling. We don't have that in this country at all. Like I remember hitting a point in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I moved there, loved the lifestyle. It's a lifestyle city, not a career city. And I come there from Silicon Valley and I got this great job running HR for this company no one ever heard of called PMC Sierra. CEO retires and all of a sudden I wake up and realize, oh my gosh, there's no other job in this town that I want to do. And, just had twins born. I'm like, I'm going to have to go. Like, I love it here, but I'm going to have to go if I want that path. And what I discovered in Singapore was the Australians are there, back to this whole national policy. The Australians are there because as an Australian, not as an America, but as an Australian, when you leave the country, you are not beholden to file. When you're an American and you live somewhere else, you still got to pay Uncle Sam. So for Australians to move to Singapore was a 7% salary increase, just like that. And, I was over in, I still had to file in Singapore. I still had to file in the US. And where the US government has tax treaties, they basically say, you're going to pay whichever is the most, but you just have to pay once, and they share in that. So, and Canada's got a tax treaty with the US, which is similar, but that's an interesting dimension, what you call it. And I've known for years that my friends in Spain, hey, we're going to retire over there. Well, why is that? Because we can protect our earnings and our retirement and their healthcare system is wonderful. And so isn't that interesting?
Like you said, like this is a 20 to 25, 26% salary increase for me. If I do nothing else, right? Probably more than that when you factor in the healthcare and even those things, right? The lack of expenses that are there, that are involved. So so I mean, it's a wild thing. And then, and the other piece of it is like, I don't like, I don't like, we talk about risk. Why does it, I push back. So I am very much against sacred cows, right? And you and
Mhm.
I were on a call earlier today, and you said something about, you said something of the nature of, and I'm trying to regain my thought here, but you said something about people. Ah, man, I literally was right there on the tip of my tongue. This never happened. Though it does happen to me a lot, actually, with ADHD brain. But it was around like having a career and knowing like where like where you want to go and what you want to do over the risk of what you want to do and being comfortable, right? So being comfortable puts us in a place of that's what America is. America, like, this is not what you were talking about, but in the context of where I'm trying to go, America is a system that designs us to be comfortable. Go to
Right.
school, get these grades, you'll get to go to one of these colleges. You'll still have to pay, but you're going to get to go to one of these colleges, graduate from this school here, and we'll help you get a one of these jobs that'll pay this, and this is
Mhm.
what you get, and then you'll die. Well, for me, that's not, I don't like comfort. My life, nothing in my life is the comfortable nature of my life is when it's uncomfortable. I get nervous when everything's like right now, I'm probably starting to get a little bit nervous. Like, why is everything working out? Like something's going to go wrong. I want something to go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, it's that, being able to navigate that world of, I'm just not like like I'm not going to sit back and just like do like, I know where I was trying to go. So on a call earlier, you talked about people in other parts of the world, not under, like, you butted heads with someone
Oh,
about
right, right,
the
right. This is
working
the
culture.
reporter in
Yes.
Barcelona.
So
That's
you
right.
butted heads
That's
about
right.
working culture, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people this, and it's funny you said, I was thinking as you were saying, I tell people, if you want to have a great work life, then go work in a place in Europe or go work in Australia. Because essentially, once you have a job, you'd have to kill somebody for them to get rid of you. Like
Uh-huh.
it literally is
Right.
that hard to terminate
Right.
someone.
Right.
If you want to build a great career, then you come to America. Now,
Mhm.
what I mean by that is you're gonna get
And
off.
you're
You're
not
gonna have your
selling one or the
siesta.
other. You're not selling one or
No,
the other here.
no.
Mhm.
It's all about what you got to know. You
Right.
got to know, what do you want? Do you want a good, chill, secure environment to where you go do your job, you go home, you don't take it home with you? That's
Yeah.
Europe. That's Australia. If you
Mhm.
want to try to excel and like you always have a carrot in front of you and that's what you're trying to do, then the land of opportunity still exists within America. The beauty of what's happening now is because of technology, you don't have to be in America to do that now.
Yeah.
So this whole workquake, this whole great career migration, I'm going to migrate out of the country, still work in America, and now get a pay increase and work more and get the benefits of the lifestyle of
Yeah.
living in Europe, but the financial and career and business access of the United States. And why not? Why
Mhm.
not do those things? If you can move to Hawaii because you want to live a good, chill life, but you still want to work in America, there is no difference in moving to Hawaii. Hawaii just happens to be part of the United States. It's further away than Portugal is. So why not go
Yeah, I didn't think of it
there?
that way. Mhm.
So, it's a better situation just
Right.
because some old dusty white guy 400 years ago said, here's a line in the dirt and this is ours and that's yours.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
Switching gears a little bit, one of the parts of my visit, and I was only there a week with my wife 2 years ago, one of the parts of Portugal that I loved, having visited many other countries, was I felt that there wasn't an arrogance that you're a stranger. I felt welcomed. I felt it's a trilingual country,
yep,
Portuguese, Spanish, and English,
yep,
that there is no when and I can only say great things about Spain, but I will say you're you know you're not from Spain. Like, we're from
yes,
Spain,
yes,
and in
yes,
Portugal, that's a land where immigration has been a constant since it was
They were the first travelers of the world, right?
That's
They
right.
were the
That's right.
Magellan, all those things. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, no country is perfect, but I feel like
Sure.
the embracing of diversity and culture is wonderful. And I felt in Lisbon itself was just the most walkable. I told my wife, I said, hey, this feels like I think San Francisco probably would have felt like in 1940 or something. Like there's energy here. There's an openness. That's beautiful. By the way, there's a Golden Gate Bridge replica. There
is.
And not like a miniature, like a real one.
The same company built. Yeah. Same company did the Bay Bridge.
I didn't know that. I was like, wow.
So Lisbon is the Silicon Valley of Europe. So a lot of people don't know that. So it's also a sister city to, it has the trolley cars, it has the hills, it has all the same stuff that San Francisco does. So it literally is, that's what they call it, the San Francisco of Europe. And I'll tell you, we booked our Airbnbs, both places, because they didn't know if that was our first stay coming in. I let them know why we were, like, in my message when I booked, I let them know why we were moving. Both places, I didn't know the people, never met them in my life. Both of them offered to pick me up at the airport and bring me to the Airbnb. Both of them.
Oh my gosh!
It's just, it's that type of place. And I know I'm sure people are probably like, oh, he's just, he's in the honeymoon phase and he's just hyping it up. And like, I'll tell you about the bad parts when I'm there. Like, but no, this is like, it is a great situation for me and my family. What may be good for me may not be good for you, but for me and what we're going through and what we're doing, this is an adventure of a lifetime for me to be able to take my family and travel the world. And to also, because of how I do business and you and I working together and how you enjoy doing business, we don't see like our limitations to business either in just the United States. We see the opportunity abroad. And I see that. So this for me gets me in another country. It allows me to learn more about another part of the world and develop connections and develop relationships and do all those different things that, the world is, and I've got so many friends. I've got so many friends that come from where I come from, that come from poverty and come from, lower income demographic areas. They don't travel because there's this fear and a lack of education and understanding of different countries. And am I accepted? Am I accepted because of the color of my skin? Am I all these different things? And they're like, now that I'm there, they're like, hey man, like I got a friend of mine. He's made some bad choices early in life, went to prison, those different things. He's out, he's starting his own business. He's doing great for the last 7, 8, 10 years. And he's a big football fan. And he was like, hey man, they play in Europe every year. He's like, next year when you're settled in, if I come to London, can we go to a game? And then you show me around a couple countries. And I was like, absolutely. Come on. Like, I'll show you around. He's like, well, I feel comfortable with you. Like, I know, like, I was like, you can feel comfortable with anybody. You can come here by yourself. Like, it's that type of, it's the stigma that we're told that it's, this scary place.
My story, Shane. I grew up in South Africa for 5 years, lived in Singapore for 2, Canada for 4. Nothing rocked me as an American as much as 2 things that happened to me when I was in Singapore. And it's hard to explain for people who haven't been outside the country. One is I was in Australia during an Olympics, and I got to see another country broadcasting the Olympics. And I didn't even know some of these sports were played because Americans don't follow it or they're not interested. And to see the lens, and it was sport. It was beautifully portrayed sport. It wasn't all the Americans, glory, backstory. That was interesting to me. And so your kids are going to get that. They're also going to, like when I was in Singapore, I fell in love with rugby because it was the only thing on TV. And I loved it. And I got into it. And the World Cup happened for rugby and England was in it. And everyone gets into it. Different psychology. And the last one was, I was in Singapore when the United States under George Bush invaded Kuwait. And to the north of Singapore is Malaysia. And to the west of Singapore is Indonesia. Not big fans of Americans.
Correct.
Okay. For a whole lot of reasons. Some of them have merit, some of them may not, but wherever you lay it, you are not
politically, they're not big fans.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So imagine yourself going to work every day, getting a text from the U.S. Embassy saying, don't go out to Boat Key tonight because it's a bomb threat. And at every minute of the day, know how far you are from the American Embassy. Like, no one's thinking there's an invasion, but you gotta your heightened sensitivity, your country just kind of going to war
Yep.
As Iraq's invading Kuwait. And so we're going there to, quote, save them. And now these countries are like, mm-mm. So seeing your country through a different person's lens, to the point where I would get into taxi in Singapore, people say, where are you from?
Yep.
I'd be like, why do they need to know that? I said, so my knee-jerk answer was, where do you think I'm from? Now that was an interesting cultural experiment, because people say, you're from France, right? And I go, yep, me, I'm from France.
Parlez-vous français? Yeah.
But you're mindful of, I'm not wearing that American flag on my shirt. I'm not being a poster for, and I love America as much as the next person, but that circumstance did not support me showing my colors.
Absolutely.
And that was like, so I wish my kids were older. They're too young to understand it. But I'm so excited, Shane, for what's in front of you. Thank you for agreeing to have a check-in on this, every so often.
I'll be there in 2 episodes from now, so maybe we might even shoot an episode while I'm there, and
that's great.
I can have something in the backdrop of maybe I'll have a pastel de nata, a little treat, a custard tart that they have over. I'll have something. We'll do something, and we can kind of tie it into whatever topic we're talking about.
They tell you when you're in Lisbon that is the best tour, is of the factory where they make those. Yeah, so don't miss that.
Well, trust me, I am actually staying within about
walking distance,
2 minutes walking distance. Our second place is in an area called Belém. So Pastéis Belém is where it originated. It's they turned an old monastery into this place that makes them. It's like a 200-year-old recipe or whatever it is. So they're the originators. Yeah, I'm going to be first in line. I'll be up early that morning and go grab some coffee, and I will be first in line that morning. So there's a line that lines up for them. So
phenomenal. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Again, thank you for sharing, Shane. This is Steve Cadigan with Shane Howard and the Work Week After Hours. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, encourage you to please like, share, rate the episode. And we'll be back next week with more.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to share my story, and we'll catch you next week.